What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to MKE MANIACI, and today we got 10 greatest WWE SummerSlams ever from the partsFUNknown YouTube channel. This Saturday is SummerSlam, man. The biggest party of the summer, the biggest blockbuster of the summer, whatever you want to call it. And I actually was going to do my personal top 10 favorite SummerSlams, but I figured we'll do this one first and see if some of my favorites are on this list. So look, without further ado, we ain't doing no more talking. Let's get it.
Alright, I'm going to set myself a little challenge because damn it's hard to write SummerSlam content sometimes. Apart from this one sentence, I'm challenging myself to write a SummerSlam list and not include the phrase, the biggest party of the summer, because that is going to
I already messed that up.
be said too much over the course of the next month, and I am nothing if not a trend-setting trailblazer. So it's time once again for the biggest... No! God! No! God, please! No! 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 I'm Adam hailing from partsFUNknown, and here are our picks for the 10 greatest SummerSlams of all time. If you'd like to check out other Ace SummerSlam content we've already made on partsFUNknown, check out our two lists we published last year, the top 20 best and top 20 worst SummerSlam matches of all time. Number 10, 1992. I know. As a right snooty British fella, 1992 should be apples and...
See, a little biased, a little, but no, let me just play it. I actually did have this SummerSlam on my personal top 10 because just the grandeur of it being over in, I think it was in Wembley, you know, the stadium was jam-packed. Like, come on, and even the main event.
Pairs, Mary Poppins, it's Tuesday, isn't it? And while yes, all of that is true, honestly, 92 isn't really that good overall. In fact, it's a bit of a mess. It just happens to be a bit of a mess that has one of the greatest main events ever in front of an insanely hot crowd. Like, here's
literally the 2 points that I just made. The venue was jam-packed and the main event was incredible.
what was on offer. A very shit Taker versus Kamala match that went 4 minutes. Crush versus Repo Man that went 6. Nails versus Virgil in an infamously terrible match. And Rick Martel versus Shawn Michaels being pretty good before a double countout in 8 minutes. Like, there's a pair of decent tag matches on the card, but without the two marquee matches, sweet Reese's Pieces, this is a bag of wet hair. Warrior versus Savage was a whole bunch of fun, running nearly half an hour with flair and perfect shenanigans aplenty, constantly teasing a heel turn from one of the company's two top guys, even if it did end in a bit of a cop-out. And then there's Bulldog versus Hart, one of the most highly acclaimed matches of all time, one of the biggest pops of all time. Like, this one match,
I go back to watch this match often. Because the storytelling throughout this match, the setting of the match, everything was perfect. That's why I had to put this SummerSlam in my top 10. I want to say this is like my 10th spot too. It's like, yeah, the overall show really wasn't as good as other, compared to other SummerSlams, but the main event alone,
match alone is enough to make 92 a milestone event, even if not a consistently entertaining one. Number 9, 2009. And speaking of shows saved by the main event, actually that's not fair. There are like 4 good to great matches on this card, which would have ranked it higher were it not for the presence of Kane versus the Great Khali. No thank you. Why did Kane and Khali wrestle 3 fucking pay-per-view matches in their career? And then the absolutely cruel rug pull of Christian versus William Regal being hyped as a world title match and going a measly 8 seconds. For reference, Kane versus Khali went 10 minutes. I think the bookers got their pages mixed up backstage. Otherwise, nothing fucking makes sense about that. There's a lot to love on this card, though. Mysterio versus Ziggler in one of the great pay-per-view openers, an all-time best.
I wasn't going to put this. This SummerSlam isn't on my top 10. And I don't know, I think the reasoning for it, I think we had Randy and Cena, which we saw at SummerSlam 2 years before this. I know it was under, different circumstances and whatever. Punk versus Jeff Hardy was interesting. That was actually, I think, one of the best storylines of the summer of 2009 was CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy. That, hands down, one of the best storylines that summer, man.
Intercontinental title matches. The old man version of 2006, old man version of DX facing off against Legacy was,
and that wasn't too bad though. Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase against DX. I actually really liked their match at Breaking Point, the pay-per-view that was after this. I really enjoyed
surprisingly
that
great, with the fans having the time of their lives as D Geriatric X rode in on a tank while Rusev was still a twinkle in Mother Russia's eye. John Cena versus Randy Orton was an overbooked load of old WWE style bollocks, but I actually kind of think it's camp fun if you're forgiving to its three restarts. So far, a mixed bag of good and not, but the main event is so awesome and wonderful to see Punk and Hardy, who had the feud of the year, go on last at a Big Four pay-per-view in a barnstormer of a TLC match featuring some all-time great TLC spots. And also, look, it's The Undertaker. What are you up to, big lad? You teleported Jeff Hardy away and appeared in his place.
That was one of the coolest Undertaker spots I ever seen, though.
Like you did with Seth Rollins, you tinker. Number 8, 2003. And
Yes.
now to turn the last two entries on their head, a show that was good despite its main event. Actually, that's not fair. If Goldberg had just won this match instead of Triple H activating Hammer Time and using his bad dick to fuck with Bill's momentum.
Okay, unpopular opinion on this SummerSlam. They got the booking right in the chamber. Triple H retaining, it was perfect. It would have made too much sense for Goldberg to just win in his first world championship opportunity. You gotta build a story with it. Triple H in Evolution, like just pummeling Goldberg. Of course, Goldberg ended up winning the title a month later, but listen, that's beside the fact. That's beside the point. That's besides the fact. I think they got it right. And actually, the Elimination Chamber match was actually very star-studded.
Chamber match, and likely the whole show might have been seen as one of the greats. There's a ton of fun matches on the card. Shane McMahon versus Eric Bischoff is total nonsense, but the crowd loves seeing Austin have some fun. The Fatal 4-Way for the US title saw Guerrero versus Benoit versus Tajiri versus Rhino. That's not too shabby. Kane and RVD had a fun match, and best of all, Kurt Angle wrestling Brock Lesnar for over 20 minutes. I do not mind if I do. Also, it directly led to the Iron Man match between Lesnar and Angle, which I like. I'm famous for liking it. So yeah, all things being considered, let's talk about the main event. A stacked chamber lineup. HBK, Y2J, Orton, Triple H, Goldberg, and also Kevin Nash. Look at you. You go, girl. Before Goldberg murders 4 of them in sensational fashion, pins 3, before suddenly having Triple H pull his controller out of the machine in a huff and hitting him with a hammer and retaining his title despite doing very little. It's a sad end, but was otherwise a super fun night. Number 7, 2000.
And how could you not like that though? Like Goldberg absolutely annihilated everybody. Now listen, we could reference, what was it, 2018 or one of the years when Shayna Baszler was just going crazy in the chamber. But like, come on, like Goldberg going crazy through everybody only to get beat by the world champ himself. Come on, now that's cold. 2008, this was another one on my list alongside 2003 and 1992.
2008. Talk about an underrated SummerSlam. Looking
Very
back at
underrated.
the card, it's not a show that screams classic, but there's a whole lot of fun here. Punk gets pretty much his only good night during his first World Heavyweight title run. Triple H somehow scratches and claws.
I didn't care for this match at all. I think this was, I mean, considering what we got for the main event on SmackDown at that time, you know, Triple H versus Khali, really, you know, no one really, I mean, it just wasn't something I really cared about, but, you know, we were all for Undertaker and Edge and Hell in a Cell.
It's a half-decent match out the
Same with CM Punk and JBL. I'm like, you know, no one really wants to see that, but we getting Batista and John Cena.
Great Khali. Batista and Cena are probably their best match together, although that depends on your tolerance for both lads. There is a bunch of filler here. MVP versus Jeff Hardy was good. Glamorella versus Kofi and Mickey was alright comedy, and Matt Hardy versus Mark Henry was yet another nail in the coffin of ECW title matches on WWE pay-per-views. How long did this one go? A minute? Fucking hell. Like, it's all largely okay, but there's no way that SummerSlam 2008 would make the list without 2 major positives. That wonderful Shawn Michaels fake retirement segment that ends with Jericho clocking Mrs. BK for reals like a bad boy, and that main event match of Edge versus Taker going dick first, balls last, in a Hell in a Cell match that ends in Edge being sent to actual hell. The storyline going into it was very stupid, with Vicky Guerrero essentially hiring The Undertaker to kill her boyfriend, but man, the match went hard, with Edge eating a ton of shit in some truly horrendous spots, and then yes, as aforementioned, dying in actual hell. The show's not full of bright spots, but those bright spots burn blindingly.
And that's, I mean, honestly, you look at the PG era, and this was like a month after the PG era was implemented. That was one of the, I say personally, one of the best Hell in a Cell matches of the PG era was Taker and Edge in 08.
6, 1998. We're on the highway to hell. Bloody love a WWE show at Madison Square Garden. WWE don't go home nearly enough, but when they do, it's almost always a good show. Mania's 10 and 20, Survivor Series 02, the Rumble 08. Such a joy to see WWE's hometown crowd show up and lend their voice to elevate a pay-per-view, and SummerSlam 98 is no exception. It would still be a few months before WWE officially rebranded to form the Attitude Era, but everything that people love about it is present and correct here. Solid mid-card action with the hair versus hair match featuring two of the best mid-card workers of all the new generation in Jarrett and X-Pac. A surprisingly good Lions Den match between Owen Hart and Ken Shamrock where no one can tell that the match is really silly. The stars of the future in The Rock and Triple H having a stormer of a ladder match. A ladder match that felt differently violent to the rubber acrobatics of the HBK matches as well. A great...
I think that Triple H and Rock match was on, it was a Triple H DVD that came out like back in 2007. I remember buying it and I watched every match on there. I think that was one of the matches that were on there.
Differently violent to the rubber acrobatics of the HBK matches as well. A great storyline tag match pitting the Outlaws versus a partnerless Mankind, and as blockbuster a main event as WWE had on its books at the time. Pre-silly Ministry Taker versus established face of the company and pretty much face of pro wrestling at that point, Steve Austin. There's one or two bad spots here. The Oddities tag match is exactly that, but otherwise this is a show that really delivers on all the elements that made WWE so hot in the late 90s. Number 5, 2014. I will keep banging the drum that 2014 might just have been WWE's best single calendar year since 2000 in terms of stories and talent, and I do not care if you...
2014... To be honest, if we talking recent memory within like the last 10, 12 years, I think 2011 takes the cake, because 2011 had a lot of like edginess to it. You know, the whole Raw roster walking out on Triple H, like it was John Lord and the People Power, Miz and Archer, like Rock and Cena, like it was 2011 was a really good year. 2014,
if you agree or not. WWE had a pitch-perfect mid-card feud on its hands in the violent breakup of the Shield, and by the end of the show, a big boss at the top of the card that WWE have only really been able to recreate once in heel Roman Reigns. Honestly, while most will remember this as a two-match show, the amazing Lumberjack match and the shocking main event, there's nothing
I'm gonna let him finish.
really bad on the card at all. Ziggler Miz was good. Rusev got in a strong win during his unstoppable run. Wyatt Jericho saw Bray get a much needed W. Stephanie versus Brie Bella was better than anyone thought it should be. Even Reigns Orton was good, but yeah, that main event though. Brock.
This right here, Lesnar absolutely destroying Cena. I'm not gonna lie, it broke my heart. The kid in me wanted to scream out, even though I was going on 20 at this time. But the young kid in me, watching Cena as a almost a 20-year-old man, watching Cena get pummeled, brutalized, pretty much squashed. Like the kid in me from 2003, 2004 wanted to scream. But, you know, we kind of understood that this was being done for a reason, to show, you know, now it's time for John Cena to transition into a different level of his career. And ever since then, honestly, Cena's career, you know, he's not Super Cena anymore, so.
Lesnar trucking the man who would not and could not be trucked, defeating Superman in convincing fashion. A giant shot of adrenaline in WWE's hierarchy, and even made ending the streak at Mania 30 seem like a good idea. It's a great show. Number 4, 2013. I love this SummerSlam because it's probably the perfect hybrid of WWE style high drama and WWE finally doing things with the air quotes indie darlings it had on its roster. The show is not perfect. Bray Wyatt and Kane's Inferno match was a bit of a letdown. Natalia and Brie Bella wasn't anything to write home about, and Ziggler and Caitlyn beating Biggie and AJ Lee isn't exactly a consolation prize from having the world title kicked straight out of his hands by Alberto Del Wanker, but everything else, capital letters, rules. Del Rio and Christian are top-notch workers and have a fab title match. Cody Rhodes versus Damian Sandow was a fun fallout match to Cody getting super over at Money in the Bank, and honestly, Punk versus Lesnar might be Brock's best actual proper wrestling match of his second WWE run.
Thank you, because I told people this. I said Punk and Lesnar at SummerSlam. I think Punk really brought out the best in Lesnar in that match, more than anyone else could really do. I mean, Lesnar and Bryan was also really good. I think Brock works very well with what do they call it? The smaller guys. But I think Brock definitely works better with them.
Which is a high bar. And then, of course, Daniel Bryan beating John Cena clean as you like with his debuting Psycho knee before walking straight into his own red wedding. Paul Levesque sends his regards. A top class example that when they want to, WWE can still break your heart in the good way. The Authority storyline might have run a little long, but it started beautifully. Number 3.
Now, the thing with SummerSlam 2013, yeah, the Authority storyline, it started perfectly. Triple H helping Randy Orton cash in Money in the Bank. Perfect. Triple H and Randy Orton, teacher and student right there. You know, the Authority running the show. My issue with it was that, you know, obviously we thought, okay, Bryan, he's going to get his opportunity at WrestleMania. It's all going to come full circle. Long-term storytelling, right? But the fact that WWE really tried to ignore this rivalry and give Batista, of all people, a match with Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30, Batista, the man that returned 2 or 3 months before WrestleMania to award him with the main event match. The fans booed the idea so bad that WWE had to insert Bryan into it some way. And they actually, they saved themselves on that one. But it's like, why forget about Bryan in the mix? Like, that was literally one of the biggest swerves of the year leading into the 30th anniversary of WrestleMania. You know, but hey, I mean, It worked out in the end, but I just can't believe they really forgot about Bryan.
2000. It was tough to decide between my top 3, so I've just put them in chronological order. That's as good as order as any when their shows are as balling as these. 2000 was the year where WWE settled into its best creative groove. Russo was gone and took all his batshit tangent stuff, schizophrenic nonsense to poison WCW's well instead. As his sort of replacement, Chris Kresge was specializing in good soap opera silliness but told with simple, comprehensive steps. The main event scene was rock solid, pun very much intended, and the mid-card had been stuffed with the pick of WCW's defecting super workers, so the wrestling was top bollocks as well. Benoit versus Jericho 2 out of 3 falls. Yes, please, I'll take thirds. Throw in Shane McMahon's first iconic jump off a big thing.
With Steve Blackman, oh my God. Yeah, Shane was definitely a daredevil, man. Definitely got to get his flowers.
Take thirds. Throw in Shane McMahon's first iconic jump off a big thing. The first ever TLC match, which is extraordinarily good with a capital extra good. And the main event, which saw one of WWE's best storylines of the year with a Kurt, Triple H and Steph love triangle boiling over in grand fashion, albeit a fashion that nearly killed Kurt Angle via a botch pedigree. The fact that he could finish that match despite getting his bell rung harder than the Campanology Olympics is further proof that he's the best of all time. Thanks. A wonderful SummerSlam that even an underwhelming Kane Taker match and a whole stink face match couldn't sully. Number 2, 2001. If it wasn't tainted...
I think we might have the same number 1. I think we might have the same number 1. There's some of them. This is hard. Why? Because it's 2 SummerSlams and we only got 1 spot left. But I'm going to wait till we get to number 1, and I'm going to give y'all my top 2 SummerSlams.
By association with the Invasion, WWE, creatively at least, dropping the ball in the potentially biggest wrestling story.
Invasion storyline, it could have been something great, but it wasn't.
Storyline of all time, SummerSlam 2001 might be remembered as a serious contender for best SummerSlam ever. It's fucking brilliant, lads. RVD and Jeff Hardy's ladder match is phenomenal. Jericho versus Rhino is good. X-Pac and Tajiri was good. Edge versus Lance Storm is low-key one of the best SummerSlam openers. Honestly, the only match you could consider bad is the steel cage match between Taker and Kane and DDP and Canyon. Not because fans didn't enjoy it, far from it, but just because it served as a dispiriting burial for one of WCW's most beloved top stars. But hey, look, don't think about that. Think about the last 2 matches instead, cause they're mint. The returning Rock beating Booker T to win the WCW title to much rejoicing, and especially, especially, Kurt Angle versus Steve Austin for the WWF title. One of my favorite wrestlers' best performances of all time. Angle emerging as a cherished babyface, proudly carrying the flag for the Fed and taking Austin to his limit over 20 marvelous minutes. It might be one of the only world title matches that's actually helped by being a DQ finish rather than hurt by it. Austin losing his damn mind at being unable to put my Olympic hero away, choosing to murder every referee in the company until someone realized that actually it might be best if not every WWF wrestler was dead, and finally stopped the thing. It was a glorious match and a really good show throughout, with WWE still benefiting from their still somehow white hot Attitude Era fan base. And number 1, 2002.
No. Alright, so it was neither. I mean, 2002 was definitely on my top 10 list, but the 2 that I feel like should definitely be discussed is 2005 and 2006. Come on, those 2 SummerSlams was Come on. Especially 2005. Did you see? I'm going to do my own SummerSlam video, but 2005, oh my God. The match card for that was incredible. 2002, like I said, is definitely, I can't remember what place I have it on my list, but it's definitely on there.
I mean, yeah, SummerSlam 2002 is the best SummerSlam by a country mile. All the matches you remember.
I think this is my third. I want to say this is third on the list. You know, Lesnar going over Booker. We had Triple H and Shawn Michaels. That storyline that was told throughout the summer. Man, we had Flair and who was it? Was it Taker?
Being good are better than you remember, and the matches you can't remember are almost as good as those. Here's just a little list for you. Angle Mysterio, aka the best opening match to a pay-per-view maybe ever. Flair Jericho.
Flair and Jericho, that's what it was. Flair and Jericho, Edge and Eddie.
Edge Guerrero, Van Dam Benoit. Yeah. The main event of Brock Rock was a wonderfully weird match where the crowd slow turned the Rock heel. The Un-Americans were all over the show, and even though the matches weren't 5 stars, they got them some good heat on them because there's no bastard worse than a Canadian bastard. And finally, Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, which belongs on the podium for top 3 SummerSlam matches of all time. A wonderfully inventive and brutal slobber knocker coupled with the crowd's heartfelt joy that not only could HBK still go, but somehow he seemed to be even better in his return match than before he left. SummerSlam 2002 truly was the biggest party of the summer. Oh, And that's our list. What's your favorite SummerSlam of all time?
Now, and I want to comment on the Shawn Michaels return. You know, I remember at this time I want to say I was like 7 years old, so I really wasn't too familiar with Shawn Michaels, in ring wise, because I started watching wrestling like late '99, mid to late '99, and really started getting into it around 2001, 02. So I really wasn't too familiar with Shawn. And I'm like, okay, everyone speaks so highly of him. A lot of the adults I was around like, oh yeah, Shawn Michaels, yeah, he's one of the best. But they question if he could really keep up with it because it's been 3-4 years since his last match. But yeah, that match was incredible. Storytelling in that match, incredible, man. But like I said, my number one would probably have to be SummerSlam 2005. But I'm gonna do my own. I'm gonna probably put something together. My top 10 personal favorite SummerSlams. But y'all let me know y'all favorite SummerSlams, man. Top 10 greatest WWE SummerSlams ever from partsFUNknown. Link down below in the description for y'all to check it out in its entirety with no interruptions. Y'all new to the channel, y'all rock with me. Want more WWE wrestling content, man? Hit that subscribe button for me. Thank you for watching. MKE MANIACI. I'm out.